me know if this microphone is working. It's so exciting to be here today. Finally, after many years of growing Netflix, to turn on the service last night at midnight or tonight, this morning, and to see the first members joining Netflix and to see the first content viewed. It's been a long time coming. If we step back in history a little, technology has always played a big role in how we communicate and entertain. So almost 200 years ago was the invention of Morse code, telegraph, and you could go and people communicated for 50 years based on that. And then the fixed line telephone started about 150 years ago. And the fixed line network grew around the world. And you could call people across the Atlantic, across Europe. This was an amazing thing 100 years ago. And then about 90 years ago, 1929, the first television broadcast, the BBC in London. And in the 1950s, more networks were created, over-the-air broadcast networks. And television was more amazing than anything because it had video and could tell stories. And then in the 1980s and the 1990s, we got cable and we got satellite, incredible numbers of shows and sports and news and variety. And all of this has been growing to be better entertainment. But still, there was one big problem. The show that you wanted to watch, it was on at 9 o'clock. But you weren't home at 9 o'clock. So you got into a television show and then you couldn't watch it. And fundamentally, the internet is the biggest new technology of our lives. And internet television is what's changing entertainment. And what we're seeing with internet television from many different companies is three big changes. The first is you can watch when you want. It's on demand. And that changes your relationship with the content. You can watch a movie in the middle of the night or the middle of the afternoon. It's YouTube, but it's all the TV shows and movies that you want to watch. Second is it's on any screen, on your mobile phone, on your laptop, on your TV. All of these become great ways to watch. And with Netflix, you can watch a show in the morning on your mobile phone on the way to work. And then when you come home in the evening, turn it on. Excuse me for the echo there. I'm sure they're working on it. Let's try that. See if that's still echoey. Well, we'll keep going. And what we see is that you can watch it on any screen. 1, 2, 3. It's clearly not powered, there we go, that's a little better, by the internet. So it's on any screen. And the third aspect of Netflix is that it's personalized. And what that allows us to do is for each person using Netflix, we learn their taste, the specific types of movies and TV shows that they love. And because of that, we can then license and develop thousands of shows. And for each person, they get a list of what's good for them. And what we want to do with Netflix, and have been doing, is producing content from all around the world. Producing content like our show Narcos in Bogota, Colombia. Our show The Crown in the UK. We're producing in all or many of the countries of the world and continuing to do more of that. And what we want to do is have the best Japanese anime, the best Turkish telenovelas, some amazing Spanish TV shows, some Argentine movies. And then for each person, they get to connect to what are the shows that they want. And we are all very unique. Of the 100 of us in this room, you'll find many different tastes. And the beauty of the internet is being personal and relevant to each person. Now, Netflix started about 20 years ago. And we first started just with DVD by post. And we mailed a lot of DVDs in the US. And we grew competing with Blockbuster in the DVD business. 98, 99, 2004, 2007, 10 years that we were only mailing DVDs. And then in 2007, the internet had gotten fast enough to allow us to stream, like YouTube. But in the early days, we could only stream to a Windows PC, not to a TV, not to a phone. It was very limited. But we knew that it would get better. And we continued to invest. And then in 2010, we offered Netflix in Canada, the first time outside of the US. Just streaming, no more DVDs. And it was very successful. In 2011, then we launched in Latin America and the UK. And the same kind of thing. Wherever the internet was, in the north of England, in Chile, in all through Latin America, when people could use the internet to watch television, they loved it. Because it was on demand, it was personalized, and it was on any screen. So then we've just continued to expand. For each country, we have to license lots of content to make it a great service and invest, so it goes country by country. A year ago, we launched in France, in Germany. That's been very successful. 6 months ago in Australia. 6 weeks ago, we launched in Japan. And now we're so excited, finally, to have Netflix here in Spain. We're going to continue to invest in Netflix in Spain, both with local productions. You'll hear more about our interest in doing that. But today we start learning. And if we look in France and Germany now, we have twice as many shows as we did when we launched 1 year ago. So we continue to add as we see what all of the tastes are. And what we hope to do around the world is create a global brand of all the great shows and movies from around the world. And to make it a place when you want to relax, when you want to connect with friends, you can just go to. Now we have lots of competition all around the world. We have competition in Germany, we have competition in the UK. And what we're seeing is because of Netflix, the existing TV networks are becoming internet TV networks. So a good example, again, is the BBC. The BBC used to just be linear TV. That's all it was. And then, because of the internet and Netflix now, there's the BBC iPlayer, which is very successful in the UK. It's got huge viewing. There's BBC One, BBC Two, and BBC Three, 3 networks. BBC Three is now becoming pure internet, not even going to be on linear. It's good because it's used so much more online. And what we'll see with all of the Spanish leading networks is they'll all continue to innovate, and because of Netflix and others, they will push into the internet, and consumers will have the options to have multiple choices. And that's great for consumers because it makes low prices. So Netflix, it's only €7.99 per month. You know, it's extremely inexpensive. And all of this competition, as the internet comes about, means that there are more choices for people in the market. And many of the existing networks will prosper by becoming internet networks. So it's not a case of the internet just replaces linear. It's more that every network is going to become an internet TV network and offer this on-demand personalization and any screen. So 10 or 20 years from now, when you think of linear TV, your grandchildren will say things like, Well, what does it mean the show was on at 8 o'clock? That will seem very strange to them. And linear TV will exist, but it will be like the fixed line telephone. You know, some people have them, especially older people, but they don't use the fixed line phone, they use their mobile phone. And this is the beginning of this internet TV revolution over the next 20 years, which we are so excited to play a little part in, to be available in Spain. And the biggest challenge we have is most people don't know internet TV and don't know Netflix. And that's why we make it free for everyone to try Netflix. Anyone can try Netflix from their Android phone or iPhone for free for a month, or from the web. And that's the best way we find to get people aware of the service, to just use it for free for a month. That's worked extremely well for us around the world. 1 year ago, we had about 16 million members in international. The rest were in US. And now we have 26 million. So it's grown from 16 to 26 million in 1 year, because of offering these free trials and getting people aware of the service. So thank you for coming today. It's such an honor, and we've got a great morning for all of you. And so let's move forward with the show. Thank you again.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Ted Sarandos. Sorry. One of these. I'm Ted Sarandos. I'm the Chief Content Officer from Netflix. What you saw was a reel of all of our original series, our original documentaries, our original series for kids, original stand-up comedy specials. What I hope you find exciting is that when we launch original series on Netflix, from anywhere in the world, they will launch in Spain and everywhere in the world at the exact same moment. One of the great innovations of internet television is a real globalization of distribution. So we're very excited, and we're even more excited to welcome some of the talent from our original series to Spain this morning. So please welcome the star of Bojack Horseman, who's had a great summer, busy with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the voice of Batman in the Lego Movie. He's working on a brand new original series for Netflix called Flaked. Please welcome Will Arnett. The whole world is talking about our first Marvel series, Daredevil. The second one is coming November 20th. We'll premiere here in Spain and all around the world. Jessica Jones. Please welcome Jessica Jones. Krysten Ritter. The star of the very popular, all around the world, Orange is the New Black, Taylor Schilling. From the Netflix series Sense8, please welcome Miguel and Silvestre, and the enormously talented and beautiful Daryl. And the showrunner from season 1 of Daredevil, Stephen S. DeKnight. Take it away.
Such an illustrious crowd. So Ted, when I look at everybody you've gathered here and the talent from all the different Netflix shows, it strikes me that it's quite a diverse set of shows that they represent. Is that a coincidence?
No, we seek to make something for every taste. So when Netflix is a product for the entire household, from animated series for kids all the way through the adult animated series like Bojack Horseman and kind of everything in between. So I think what you'll see in our shows as we roll out, we currently have 22 original series in production. By this time next year we'll have over 30. So they represent a lot of different genres and tastes.
So, Will, when you worked on season 4 of Arrested Development, which is one of the very first Netflix original series, and since then you've done Bojack Horseman and you're working on Flaked, what was it like to be one of the first to actually work with Netflix on an original series?
Yeah, it felt good. Felt like we were, doing a trial run, and we got to, we got to see what worked and what didn't, and I got to give a lot of notes to Ted and Reed about what I thought of the product. They didn't care, but no, it was a great experience. Our entire cast, I speak for the entire cast of Arrested Development, saying that working with them purely from a creative perspective was phenomenal, and I think that they've always been about just letting the creative people do what they do and encouraging them to do that to their best ability, and it's a wonderful place to be.
So we can do a quick round of everybody. If you were to have to say one thing about what's different about working with Netflix compared to working with a traditional network, what would you say it is?
Starting
with you.
Okay, wonderful. I think the most exciting part is not having to worry about the ratings the next day. A lot of times on a TV show, like, ratings come out, everybody's on set, like, oh God, should we find new jobs? So it's nice to be able to create something in a bubble and have it feel like a 13-hour movie. Yeah.
Great.
I've always been really impressed with the level of creative freedom that Netflix allows sort of from the top down, and that's been different in my experience.
Miguel.
Bueno, yo creo que una de las cosas que me llama la atención es, como dicen mis compañeros, la libertad que tiene cuando no tienes una audiencia. Los directores, los escritores, los actores pueden arriesgar, intentar enseñar los conflictos desde otro punto de vista que a veces es más particular y no forma parte de un sistema o de una aceptación que necesitas que haya una audiencia detrás. Creo que esa es una de las cosas de las cosas muy positivas que tiene Netflix, que puedes encontrar shows, como he dicho, shows, no tan en inglés, no, pero es que llevo entrenando unos días, pero es que digo que puedes the way I say show, like they can see that my English is getting better. Otherwise I would have said show. Show. Ok, so, pues eso, que los shows, que lo que puedes ver es eso, que tienes la posibilidad de ver conflictos que no has visto anteriormente, que te llaman la atención, que no son tan... Y eso creo que al espectador le estimula mucho, porque a veces ves cosas que realmente puedes ser voyeur y sentir que estás viendo algo que no has visto.
Muchísimas gracias.
That's exactly what I was going to say. No, our show pushes so many different boundaries, and I can't imagine doing that on any kind of traditional network. They wouldn't allow it, and we had so much incredible creative support. It just felt like a wonderful, thoroughly creative experience. And for me, I don't have a TV, so Netflix is the only way I get to really enjoy entertainment outside of movie theaters, so I really appreciate it.
For me, as a showrunner, executive producer, I couldn't ask for a better creative partner. When you work with a traditional network, you get a ton of notes that generally try to make your show as middle of the road as possible. They want it to appeal to everyone. And the great thing about Netflix is we would come up with an idea, with something a character does that was usually pretty reprehensible, not even for our hero. They allowed our hero to do horrible things. And not once did they ever say, you can't do that because the audience won't like it. All they cared about was the story, and that's the great thing about Netflix, is that story is number one, and then everything else is secondary.
So Ted, when you decide what to put on Netflix, how do you decide? Is it all about the stories?
It is. It's mostly about finding kind of the stories and the worlds that are not being presented on television today. the things that are difficult, almost impossible to do for television today. I think what Stephen mentioned about the way that you could present a comic book hero was really outside of, in the history of television, the way a comic book hero had ever been presented on television. And I think in terms of from the fan perspective, there was a recent poll of comic book fans who voted on the best current and historic adaptation of comic books on television, and season 1 of Daredevil topped the poll by far. So I think it's giving the fans what they want more than the showrunners giving the executives what they want.
I think to that point, and to what you were sort of asking earlier, like when we did Arrested, the fourth season for Netflix, you know, Mitch Hurwitz really approached writing that season for Netflix. It was I think it was the first show that was really written for, I mean, not that House of Cards wasn't, but it was really written for Netflix and to be consumed in a way, you know, it's not a TV show, it's a Netflix show in that sense. And I think that all these people are kind of saying the same thing. We did the same thing on Bojack Horseman as a show that was really written to be viewed on Netflix and be consumed, really understood who the consumer was and what people wanted to see versus what you know, the sort of the advertisers want you to see. Not that there's anything wrong with the advertisers, I love them.
But we don't have any of them.
And by the way, I know I don't speak Spanish, and just I hope that whoever's translating me gets how subtle my humor is. But I think the other thing is, you know, but we would do the same thing. You know, we were working on Flaked just up until Friday night in Venice and in California, and people would say, "Are you guys, you know, what's your TV show?" I said, "Well, we're making a Netflix show, and we wrote it with that in mind. We understand who the people are who are viewing the show and how they want to consume the show, and they, you know, Netflix allowed us to do that too. So it's great."
Question for Taylor. You've traveled around the world a lot with Netflix, and since Orange is the New Black launched, how do you feel about a show launching all around the world all at the same time?
Well, from my vantage point, I mean, it feels sort of unprecedented, and it's just so exciting to see how this show and themes that kind of, I think, felt unique to the U.S., things that are happening in our own prison system and the issues with mass incarceration, and really are deeply felt globally, and that really, as soon as you kind of get personal with an issue, the way that Genji Cohen has, it hits universal chords, and that's been a real pleasure to watch and be a part of. That wherever I am, people really embrace these stories and the characters with the fervor that they do in the States. So it's surprising and it's exciting.
Thank you. So Miguel and Daryl, you with Sense8 have had the same experience where, you know, it becomes available everywhere at the same time. How's that been for you? How's that experience for you?
It was pretty trippy because I think when it first launched, I was actually in France and then Italy like the next day, the day after, and people would just, my character is sort of ghosty in a weird way, and people kept looking at me like I was actually a ghost when they were watching. People would be like, "Am I a sensei?" They would think that they saw me and they would thought they were a sensei because they were seeing me and they weren't sure if they were seeing me or not. It was really funny. And I didn't expect that when I was in France. I'm like, what's going on? Oh, and it was because people, had traveled from other parts of the country, from other parts of Europe had just seen it, so they were freaking out. It was pretty cool. Pretty nice to have everybody be able to get it at once, and now, of course, in Spain as well.
Sí. Y yo creo que esto que iba a decir no iba a tener gracia, así que no lo voy a decir. Iba a decir que, bueno, pues que vas a Italia y te invitan a comer, pero vamos, en Italia nos invitan a comer porque están viendo Velvet también, que también está en Netflix en otros países, pero creo que es la exposición. La exposición que realmente para un actor Y hoy en día, vosotros lo sabéis mejor que nadie, es muy importante poder tener un cierto valor de producción también de cara a proyectos internacionales. Y lo bueno de Netflix es que de repente sale la serie y la pueden ver en muchos países y está ahí. Y en el caso de Sense8, donde yo creo en el mensaje, creo que los Wachowski han hecho un mensaje muy bonito. Lo bonito es que que pueda llegar a tantas casas, ¿no? Sense8 habla de la empatía y yo creo que en España una de las cosas de las que me siento muy orgulloso cuando estoy fuera es que veo que en España hay mucha empatía y sobre todo a todos los niveles, pero yo me siento tan orgulloso de poder decir que aquí no hay problemas con el tema de la homosexualidad o que somos un país con una mente mucho más abierta, pero creo que de repente contenidos como Orange is the New Black o Sense8 llegan a muchos países y creo que culturalmente ayudan también a que poco a poco vaya una sociedad se vaya relajando en cuanto a depende de qué tipos de aspectos.
Thank you. Ted, I had a quick question for you on original programming and how important is original programming to Netflix and what's going to happen next?
It's been interesting. It's very important in that I think as Netflix travels around the world, the things that people they used to ask is, well, why do you have this or why don't you have that? And more Netflix is about these original shows and bringing great global storytelling to the planet. And in terms of what's going to happen next, Reed had mentioned earlier The Crown. We're filming in the UK, which we're really excited about. We're doing a series with Baz Luhrmann that's filming right now in New York, which again is taking kind of great global storytellers and telling stories for the world. It's very easy to think that some of these are American shows for a global audience. They're not. These are shows that are from some of the best storytellers on the planet, telling it to the rest of the planet. And we're also producing original series in French in France, in Spanish in Mexico, and in Italian in Italy, with using local talent who we believe are going to emerge as great global storytellers.
Stephen, so does the model of all episodes of a series being released all at once instead of one episode a week affect the way you tell a story?
It does. Oftentimes, when you're creating a show that's episodic and airs every week, you have to spend a certain amount of time with each episode resetting what happened last week to remind people. The great thing about releasing it all at the same time is you can do away with that. You assume people are going to watch them 3-4 episodes at a time, and sometimes even more. On April 10th at 12:01, when Daredevil was released around the world, I sent out a tweet saying it's time to let the devil out. And the next afternoon, when I checked Twitter again, it was probably about 12 hours later, there were tens of thousands of people that had already watched all 13 episodes. And to be able to get that immediate kind of feedback is just astounding.
So, Krysten, you're a little bit new to the panel here, and your show has yet to release. How do you feel about the idea of all episodes of Jessica Jones being available all at once in 20 countries?
I mean, it's incredibly exciting. I really didn't even sort of grasp what that meant when I got the part. Then it was explained to me it's going to come out everywhere all on the same day. You know, as an actress, you hope that your work is seen, as long as it's good. And at Netflix, the quality is so high across the board. They're making the best shows out there. So it's incredibly exciting. And yeah, I'm thrilled.
A quick question again for everybody is, how has Netflix changed the way you watch TV? Start with Will.
Well, like Daryl, I don't have a TV either. I read a lot. And like the New Yorker and stuff, just long articles. Yeah, they're just about social issues and stuff, literature. But yeah, it does, you know, look, Netflix changes the way that I consume my entertainment the same way that it does everybody else. I mean, I watched, you know, you were saying that Steven was saying that people had watched within 12 hours all the episodes. I mean, when I got into Narcos, I went right through, had a big bag of blow, and I just watched all episodes in a row. Which is a great way to do it. Yeah, thanks for the blow, by the way. But it is true that, you know, I watched it in that, and you don't have to catch up. Because you're right there in the story, and clearly the creative team behind that, Jose Padilla and those guys, they understood that that's how the show would be consumed, and so and it really worked. You know, you're kind of sucked into that in a great way.
I watch all of my television on Netflix, even before I worked here. I'm not just I watched all of Orange is the New Black in a day, Bloodline over 3 days when I was jet lagged in Paris, and then also shows that I missed when they were on broadcast. I just watched the entire season. I had a little bit of a sore throat, so I watched the whole season of How to Get Away with Murder. It's long gone are the days where you're like, oh, it's Tuesday at 9:30, I have to get home. Like, people are too busy. People don't watch television like that anymore. So it's really cool to be able to do what you want to do when you want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that I don't watch a lot of TV, but I watch. When I do, I tend to only want to watch things now that I can watch in like very broad chunks. And I did that with that show, The Fall, right, Don? Yes, The Fall with Gillian Anderson. So good, you know. I like those. And then I also really like how Netflix kind of gives you the opportunity to watch all those documentaries at once. That's something I do a lot of. You know, weird movies like that.
Miguel, are you watching Netflix?
Sí. ¿Yo? ¿Por qué? Yo, para añadir a lo que han dicho mis compañeros, a mí me gustan mucho los documentales que tiene Netflix. Por las noches, cuando ya después de estudiar o lo que sea. A mí me gusta ver las series por la mañana y también me gusta verlas y tener yo la medida de poder ver tantos capítulos como quiera. Pero los documentales también, el contenido que tiene de documentales es buenísimo, muy bueno. Y es otra de las cosas que creo que la gente va a disfrutar aquí, los documentales.
Quick note on how Netflix has changed the way you watch TV.
Well, like I said, I don't have a TV, and I don't like other streaming services either because I don't like commercials. So I don't like to be, you know, talked into buying things I don't really need. So I mean, it's been great for me. You know, we travel a lot and our schedules are weird, and I can't stay culturally literate, pop culturally literate if I didn't have, you know, Netflix. I guess I wouldn't know who these lovely people are when I met them. I would be sort of out of it. And I just absolutely love having access to all of those documentaries, because I remember in the past I would tell someone about a documentary, but they come and go so fast from movie theaters. And now, I mean, like I just recently saw Winter on Fire, and it's so powerful and so important and incredible, and it's great that I can, you know, share it. I can tell people to watch it. They can go access it and find these things, and it's incredible.
Yeah, we've gone from VHS to DVR to streaming, and I think streaming is definitely the future that's here now. And even when things that aren't on Netflix, I find myself, I will DVR 5 episodes and then watch them all instead of going week to week. And Netflix has also become my gym buddy. It's the best thing ever on the treadmill, because wherever you are, you have this vast library you can pull from.
That's why you're so fit.
Exactly.
Before we break up,
I just want to add real quick, you know, the way that social media has changed, and the internet really has changed the way we live and work. Almost everyone in the world now has a friend or a colleague in another country, so when you have this conversation about the show you're watching or the movie you just saw, it used to be mostly frustrating, because in one country or another you couldn't see it, and now the idea of just pushing play wherever you are in the world has really globalized viewing in a different way.
It really is remarkable. Like I've never had a job or worked on anything that family members I have in different countries can so easily have access to, and it can be a conversation that happens inside of my family instead of sending DVDs to people, you know, in the UK or something. So it's I've never thought of that. It's pretty remarkable that Netflix kind of just lets that happen.
So before we move to the executive Q&A, I wanted to see if there are one or two questions in the room for our talent panel. If you have a question, just raise your hand and somebody will be with you with a microphone. We just have a little bit of time for a couple of questions for the panel before we bring up Reed again for some more Q&A with you guys. Victor is going to come to you with the microphone.
Hola. Mi pregunta es para DeKnight. Me gustaría saber la libertad que habéis tenido a la hora de adaptar Daredevil o si Marvel está mucho tiempo detrás vuestra a la hora de la adaptación.
Sí.
Yes. How free were you really?
Was Marvel keeping an eye on us? Yes. See, I was correct. Yes, I mean, Marvel is this vast conglomerate machine and they treat security very, very, very seriously. Because if anything gets out prematurely for Marvel, it's hundreds of millions of dollars lost. So security is very important, and their IP is very important. They've had Daredevil for decades, and the Marvel executives I worked with, they were not only overseeing Daredevil, they had through their careers, they had written for Daredevil, they had illustrated Daredevil. Daredevil was one of their favorite characters, so they were very, very involved in constructing the story, and but they were great partners.
One more question? Back there.
Buenos días, soy Diana de los Interrogantes y me gustaría saber cuál era vuestra serie favorita de jóvenes y si os gustaría que Netflix la incluyera o os veréis protagonizando también algún remake de esas series.
¿Es una pregunta para alguien especial? So what's your favorite series?
We were watching as a kid.
What's your favorite series?
Favorite series as a kid.
Asking me?
The whole panel.
Oh Jesus.
Mainly you.
As a kid, I actually like, as a young man, I watched all the very old American sitcoms, like the Dick Van Dyke Show and Andy Griffith Show. I think I watched them pretty obsessively.
That's such a good answer.
Yeah.
That's such a non-embarrassing,
Yeah.
solid,
Straight.
cool person answer. I love that. That's a good answer.
Well, I'm super young, so I grew up with Friends.
That was your first show.
That was my first show. Kind of super young, so. Well, I grew up in Canada watching like really weird, like bad CBC shows like The Beachcombers and stuff that would not resonate.
I was really into In Living Color as a little kid.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah, I watched Saved by the Bell. I watched Saved by the Bell. I watched Punky Brewster when I was in one. I watched Care Bears. I watched. Yeah, I don't know. I could keep going.
Médico de familia.
No les digáis de qué va la serie que voy a decir, lo bueno es que no la han visto. Mi serie ¿cómo se llama esto? Un paso adelante. Que soy europeo, español y muy intelectual y que veo la película. O sea, no les digáis. Y también esto es buenísimo porque es de ellos, pero tampoco van a saber el título que era La sensación de vivir.
What Miguel said.
¿Veis? Es que
que ya es
No,
hippie intelectual.
No, I used to watch I Love Lucy and Honeymooner, like all these old black and white shows were my favorites.
It's good if you're in the sound and they're
Yeah,
around late night
that's-
and just watch it.
That's exactly what I would do.
I'm a lot older than Will, so I used to watch when I was a kid, Star Trek and the $6 Million Man were my favorites.
Great, thank you. So we're out of time with our panel, so I'm going to ask you guys to move on to the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us. And then,
Creo que Netflix ha reunido ya con algunas productoras en España, no sé si me lo pueden confirmar. Y la segunda es cómo valoran el término de imbatible que hace Movistar Plus de su oferta de series y cine. O sea, yo porque el término imbatible deja a Netflix un poco fuera.
So two quick questions. One is there's talk that you had some Spanish producers. Is that true? And second question is Movistar says they're unbeatable. What do you think about that term, unbeatable?
I didn't hear the
No, the first question is, did you meet any? Okay. The second question is Movistar series that they're unbeatable. What do you think about that way of marketing themselves?
We do the first one, please.
Perfect. Yes, we've been speaking to Spanish producers. We're launching in Italy this week, and we announced a few weeks ago that we're doing a local series in Italy as well called Sabora. And we're looking for that project in Spain as well. So really what I said when we're looking for shows that were great storytellers, great worlds that people have not seen before, that will travel around the world, be very important to our viewers in Spain, but also be very entertaining for the rest of the world. So as part of our initiative there to roll that out, we are speaking to Spanish producers, filmmakers, television producers, and looking for that great Netflix original show from Spain. And you wanted to take the unbeatable.
In the US, we've grown from 0 to 42 million members, and HBO has not shrunk. HBO has continued to grow. And so the reason is HBO does good shows. If Movistar has great content, they'll continue to grow, and Netflix will continue to grow, just like HBO and Netflix in the US. So consumers want the great content, but no one channel has it all.
Hola, buenos días. Yo quisiera preguntarles si han pensado en el contenido offline para poder verlo realmente en todos los sitios. Y segundo, ¿por qué tienen la sede en Holanda?
So, because I'm from the Netherlands, no. Why do you have your headquarters in the Netherlands? That's one question. The other question is offline viewing. Will you offer it?
You have to pick an European headquarters someplace, and Netherlands was a very good place for us to start because it's in the center of so much of Europe. And then second was downloading. We're really focused on streaming because we think streaming will get everywhere, airplanes, trains, over time, and the downloading is only temporary in the next few years. And so that's why we're focused on streaming.
Yeah. ¿Por qué han decidido refrescar ahora a las chicas Gilmore?
Ay, me encantan.
Oh, the question about the Gilmore Girls. There are rumors about the Gilmore Girls.
Well, people do love the Gilmore Girls, but I wish I could tell you some more, but I can't today.
Sí, hola, buenos días. Alberto Quintanilla, dije en España. Quería saber, es muy concreto, si tienen algún número, alguna cifra aproximada de usuarios que esperan alcanzar en los próximos meses, desde el lanzamiento hasta Navidad aproximadamente. Gracias.
What are your goals for Spain?
We hope in Spain, like the rest of the world, that we can get to 1/3 of households to become Netflix subscribers in 7 years. In the US, it took us from 2007 to 2014 to get to 1/3 of households. and we're on track in the other nations of Europe.
Yo quiero saber qué quieren saber exactamente de nosotros, de los usuarios, a través del Big Data. Es decir, si Netflix tira más por datos de comportamiento, por datos de gusto, o exactamente qué información sacan a partir de ese crawling de todo lo que hacen los usuarios mientras están en Netflix, desde el número de pausas hasta el tipo de contenidos.
So Netflix is known for big data and collecting information about its viewers. Why do you want to know that, and what do you want to know?
What we learn from our users using Netflix is then how to give them new shows that they're going to like. So think of it as matching what shows. If you like these shows, you'll like other shows.
And I think we also could make the experience of finding those shows better and better. So we're looking at the user data of how people choose, how they select things, helps the next wave of users find those great shows as well.
No sé si conocéis, en España hemos tenido la batalla con la piratería, etc. No sé qué pensáis, si ya se ha conseguido acabar con ella y qué se debería hacer con experiencia en otros países que habéis vivido.
So in Spain, there's been a long-standing fight against piracy. What do you think about piracy, and will you do anything about piracy?
We're doing something about piracy this morning with launching in Spain. Everywhere we have launched Netflix around the world, the piracy has been reduced. Most recently in Australia, which is one of the piracy hotspots in the world. Since Netflix has been operating there, the piracy is down 27%. So we're seeing that a really well-distributed, well-priced product that is easy to use and high quality, that people will choose that. And that's what we're seeing around the world.
Hola, buenos días. Alejandro López de Mundo Plus. Yo quería saber cómo han recibido las quejas y peticiones de emitir contenido en catalán y si piensan que pueden perder usuarios potenciales a la hora de no emitir esa edición.
The question is about local languages like Catalan, where you support it, and if you don't offer Catalan, does it cost Netflix any customers?
We're starting with just Spanish. We've got both Castilian Spanish and Latin American Spanish. And over time, as the market grows, if there's demand, then it's not that difficult for us to add one more language.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Hola, buenas. Es una pregunta 2 en 1. La primera es, ¿tenéis pensado lanzar algún dispositivo hardware exclusivo de Netflix para Netflix, tipo Apple TV o...?
So, did Netflix ever consider launching a device, specifically Netflix device, to stream Netflix with?
A long time ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, we looked at a Netflix device, but we realized that the smart TV would be the right way in the long term. And then of course there's Apple TV and Chromecast that provide great watching platforms as well as tablets and phones. So we won't be doing a box. It's only working with other companies.
Y la segunda parte es, hay muchos usuarios extranjeros que veían Netflix a través de VPN. ¿Tenéis alguna cifra sobre la conversión a usuarios?
So the question is around VPN, and what do you think about using VPN?
Well, VPN's against our terms of service. We don't have the rights to provide, for example, the American films in Spain. So, you know, it's, we try to stop it, but we're not perfect at it. And what we want to do instead is to have our content be available around the world, so there's no need for VPNs. So like Beast of No Nation, our new movie was launched around the world, every territory. So then there's less piracy and no need for the geo-hacking VPN.
I would go back to your earlier question about piracy, and I think a lot of, today, a lot of the piracy of content is television shows. More and more so, even more than movies today. And I think that is because that's consumer frustration of not having things available. So we're trying to address that frustration instead of trying to increase it by improving the global footprint of content around the world.
Last question. So we have a microphone.
Hola, buenos días. En el último año hemos visto como actores españoles como Miguel, Silvestre o Carlos Bardem han fichado por series en inglés. No sé si ese movimiento tiene que ver con que se estaba planeando la llegada a España para acercarnos más a esas series y si se pretende seguir fichando actores españoles para nuevas series o para nuevas temporadas de otras series que ya están para este Netflix España.
So some Spanish actors have started making series in English. So the question, I believe, is whether you'll expect to see also more series potentially in Spanish for Spanish actors.
It would be my preference if we made a series in Spain to make it in Spanish. To make that story that is uniquely from Spain probably should be in Spanish. I think English language European production tends to be not quite American, not quite local. So I would prefer that all of our local language series that we're shooting in Mexico and France and Brazil, in Italy, that it's in local language.
What about Marseille?
Yeah, we're currently in production on a series called Marseille that we're filming in France. Gérard Depardieu is starring in the show. It was pitched to us as that they could do it in English, and it was our preference was that it would be made in French. Club de Cuervos, Spanish language series we shot in Mexico that is playing, not just in Mexico, but it's also playing around the world, and not even just for the Spanish-speaking world, because Netflix could make that available in local languages everywhere we are.
And Narcos is 2/3 in Spanish, and we found it to be very successful in Norway, in Canada, in
France,
the US, in France, around the world. So I think people are getting, bigger market for original language with subtitles. So we're encouraged by that.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.